The storage facility sat on the edge of town, just beyond a faded billboard and a stretch of dry Texas grass that never seemed to move. It was August 2018. The auction drew maybe 15 people. Most were resellers, quiet, calculating, waiting for something small they could flip for cash. Unit 47 was near the back fence. The metal door rattled when it rolled up, dust falling in thin streams from the tracks above. Inside, a mattress, 2 plastic bins, a wooden chair with 1 loose leg, and a locked gray lockbox. Nothing special. The bidding was brief. The unit sold cheap. An hour later, the buyer alone now sat cross-legged on the concrete floor. The afternoon heat pressed in through the thin walls. He shook the lockbox once. Something shifted inside. He used a flathead screwdriver to pry it open. The lid gave with a soft pop. Inside was a small black ledger. Not a diary. No decorative cover. Just ruled pages filled with tight, deliberate handwriting. Each entry began with a date, then 2 initials, then a single sentence. May 3 minus LM. She didn't lock it. June 11 Maitsuke. She thought I was safe. No explanations. No addresses. No emotion. Just statements. The handwriting was steady, careful, as if written slowly to avoid mistakes. He flipped further. July 2, Warty. They always open the door. A faint breeze pushed dust across the storage floor. The open unit amplified outside sounds, the distant hum of traffic, a dog barking somewhere beyond the fence. He turned another page. August 14th, 1991. CW. She stopped answering. That was the first entry, with more than 1 line. Beneath it, written darker, pressed harder into the paper. No one suspected. They never do. The buyer paused. There was no anger in the writing. No rambling. No religious symbolism. No mention of blood or violence. Just calm documentation. He checked the inside cover for a name. Nothing. Only a faint indentation where something had once been taped and removed. He glanced back at the rows of storage units, stretching down both sides of the gravel lane. Most doors were closed now. Locked. Quiet. He looked again at the date. He didn't recognize the initials. But something about the tone unsettled him, not because it sounded insane. It didn't. It sounded organized. He closed the ledger and held it in his hands for a moment longer than necessary. Then he opened it again. Near the back pages, 1 final entry stood alone. No initials. No date. Just 1 sentence. They trust me because everyone does. The initials CW meant nothing at first, but the date did. August 14th, 1991. At home, the buyer searched local archives. Small-town records from the early 90s weren't hard to find, digitized clippings, scanned newspapers. 1 headline stopped him. Woman missing from Westridge neighborhood. 28 years old. Lived alone. Last seen the evening of August 14. Her name was Claire Whitman. ZW. The article said a neighbor noticed her porch light still on the next afternoon. Her car was in the driveway. The TV could be heard faintly through the window. Police entered the home. No sign of forced entry. No broken glass. No damaged lock. Inside, a living room lamp was on. A mug sat beside an open magazine. The back door was closed but unlocked. Claire was never found. Authorities first suggested she left voluntarily. Friends disagreed. She had work the next morning. Plans that weekend. Nothing packed. Within a year, the case cooled. The buyer opened the ledger again. August 14th, 1991, 9 Stadleys. She stopped answering. No one suspected. They never do. Stopped answering. Not left. Not disappeared. Stopped answering. He searched deeper. One archived note mentioned a partial fingerprint recovered from the inside of Claire's front door. It didn't match family or known associates. In 1991, the database was limited. The print was logged and filed away. He flipped backward in the ledger. May 3, Naimanan. Alnam. June 11, AK. July 2, RT. Same year. Same pattern. She didn't lock it. They always opened the door. There were no violent details. Only access. He looked up the storage unit renter. The man had died 2 years earlier from cancer. No criminal record. Longtime resident. Volunteered locally. Helped neighbors move. Fixed small repairs for elderly homeowners. Described in his obituary as dependable. Trusted. The buyer stared at the final page again. They trust me because everyone does. Outside, evening settled over his street. Porch lights flicked on. Doors closing. He wondered how many would open if someone familiar knocked. The buyer didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, he searched the other initials in the ledger. Elm, May 3rd, 1991. AK, June 11th, 1991. RT, July 10th, 1991. It took hours. Old newspapers weren't fully digitized. Some articles were scans of scans, text barely readable. But patterns began to form. In May 1991, a short column mentioned a woman named Laura Madsen who had moved out of town abruptly. Friends said it felt sudden. She left furniture behind. In June, an obituary appeared for Anna Keller. Cause of death listed as accidental fall in her home. No further detail. In July, a police blotter noted a welfare check on Rachel Torres. Reported missing for 3 days before returning, she declined to file a report. 3 women. Same summer. Same town. Each living alone. None connected publicly. The buyer flipped back to the entries. She didn't lock it. She thought I was safe. They always open the door. The wording wasn't angry. It wasn't chaotic. It was observational. He searched the name of the storage unit renter again. This time, not for crimes, for proximity. The man had worked part-time as a church maintenance assistant in the early 90s. He also volunteered during neighborhood safety walks. Safety walks. Knocking on doors. Checking locks. Offering help. The buyer leaned back from the screen. There was no arrest record. No charges. No rumors. Just a man consistently described as reliable. A man neighbors would recognize. A man who could stand on a porch at night without raising suspicion. He opened the ledger to the final page again. They trust me because everyone does. Below that, in lighter ink, almost faded. It's easier when they recognize your face. The buyer read the line twice. Then a third time. There were no descriptions of what happened after the doors opened. No confessions in detail. Only confirmation that they did. He imagined the moment. A knock. A familiar voice. A door opening just wide enough. Not for a stranger. For someone known. He closed the ledger slowly. For the first time since finding it, he felt something colder than curiosity. Not fear. Recognition. Because the man in the obituary photo looked ordinary. The kind of face you wouldn't hesitate to let inside. The buyer finally contacted the sheriff's office. He didn't make accusations. He simply handed over the ledger. An investigator flipped through the pages carefully. No signatures. No addresses. No explicit admissions. Just dates. Initials. Patterns. The name of the former storage renter surfaced quickly. Deceased. No record. No prior investigation tied to him. Archived files from 1991 were reopened. The partial fingerprint, recovered from Claire Whitman's front door, was reprocessed. Back then, the database had been small. Now it wasn't. Weeks later, the update returned. The print matched. Not to a drifter. Not to a known offender. To a volunteer. A maintenance assistant involved in neighborhood safety outreach the same summer. Those entries were written. There would be no interrogation. No trial. No confession. He was already dead. The sheriff's office reopened the missing persons files quietly. Families were notified with careful wording. New information. Possible connection. No details were released publicly. The buyer expected relief. Instead, he kept thinking about the language in the ledger. She didn't lock it. She thought I was safe. They always open the door. Never force. Never break in. Only permission. He asked one final question. Did he live near them? No. He lived across town. But he had reasons to visit. Church repairs. Volunteer check-ins. Community outreach. He belonged everywhere. Months later, the ledger was sealed into evidence. The buyer tried to forget. One evening, locking his own door, he hesitated. Not because of strangers, but because of neighbors. Because trust doesn't arrive looking dangerous. The final line of the ledger never appeared in the official report. It's easier when they recognize your face. The storage unit was cleared. The lock replaced. Life moved forward. In an evidence room under fluorescent light, the book remains cataloged. Thin. Ordinary. Waiting to be opened by someone who already feels safe.